Hello, my name is Faina, and I have dedicated the last 7 years to honing my craft and fine-tuning my strategy.
Welcome to Trading in the Zen, where we help traders find their groove. I'm your co-host, Louise Nonweiler, a trading psychologist and multi-award-winning clinical hypnotherapist. Join us weekly as we delve into the trading world, exploring psychology, well-being, health, and mindset. Through expert insight, interviews, and actionable strategies, we help you as traders unlock the mindset needed to navigate markets with confidence and achieve peak performance.
At Trading in the Zen, we believe that there's much more to trading than numbers and probabilities. Like an athlete, a trader should operate in their peak state. Each week, you will have mind-blowing interviews as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better trader. Thanks for spending time with us today. Now, let's dive right in. In this episode, we interview JJ Flizanes. JJ has been empowering people in the areas of health, relationships, healing, and business since 2005. She specializes in helping people to create a roadmap to emotional healing and rewiring core wound patterns with her exclusive core wound mapping. Welcome to Trading in the Zen. Today we have JJ. JJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you, ladies. Excited to be here.
It's really nice to have you, JJ. Thank you.
I was, and Louise as well, we were very interested in speaking to you because, as you know, a lot of our audience as traders, financial traders, and we are always looking for ways to, improve and kind of troubleshoot some of the main challenges that every trader experiences. And I guess I'm just going to dive right in. And one of the subjects that we were discussing right before the show with Louise is the self-sabotage. Because for traders, well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're about, and what you do, and then maybe touch on the subject of when we're on a losing streak, we self-sabotage and you throw all caution to the wind and you sort of just go, well, if I'm losing, then screw it. I'm just going to sabotage myself and lose it, and then I'm in control of this losing thing. The flip side of it is when you're on a winning streak. When you're on a winning streak, you think of the other shoe dropping all the time. So every time you come in, you're like, well, this can't last forever. This can't last forever. Well, what happens if so you start to sabotage yourself that way, even if you're winning. So I'm going to give the stage to you. Please tell us about you and please help us with the self-sabotage.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So what do? I help people overcome those limiting beliefs by healing and identifying their core wounds and their upper limits. So let's just kind of back up for a second and discuss what those things mean. So we all have core wounds. Core wounds are the beliefs that get created in your brain, in your subconscious. You become like hypnotized because when we're 3 months before we come out of the womb and up until about 7, we are in a alpha and theta state of your brainwave, which is like hypnosis, and then presence. But it's because we want to survive. Like we're programmed to survive and have connection. And so because our brain's not conscious, we can't think about our thoughts. And the problem with not thinking about our thoughts is we can't be an observer because we're in it. And when you're in it, your brain starts to make decisions about the interpretation of whatever's going on around you. So let's say your parents left you crying a little too long, and you, because they were told that you needed to cry it out, and your brain says, well, they don't love me. I've been abandoned. I've been ignored. And all of a sudden you have this belief system in your subconscious, which, by the way, is 88% of your brain. 88%, which means you can't hear it. You don't even know what's in there. You might know some things if you've been doing this for a while, but the subconscious is the part of the brain that is like the basement. It stores all the beliefs, all of the memories, all of the interpretations and opinions. But ultimately, only 12% of your brain is conscious. And that's the part of your brain that's listening to this podcast and thinking of something else at the same time. Or if I ask you to bring up a memory, like you may say, oh, I'm really hungry and how long is this going to be? And, she talks really fast or whatever. Like that's your conscious brain, which is only 12%. Everything else is in your subconscious. And your subconscious is like the computer program on your computer that allows you to open up programs. So except that they've been installed, but you didn't ask for them to be there. In fact, that's why most people continue to have self-sabotaging patterns and behaviors, is because you don't know that they're there, whether it be through multiple marriages or divorces or self-sabotage in the way of health and business. These patterns and beliefs, if we don't know what they are, then how do you know how to get rid of it? Like all of the top level surface stuff could be like tools and tricks, but it isn't going to pluck out the root of the weed that keeps growing in your yard that you keep, pruning, but it never stops growing because you haven't gotten it at the root. So that's kind of what I do with people, because I believe that no matter what your goal is in life, if you don't understand your core wound patterns and how they play out in your life, then you're never going to stop self-sabotaging because you don't know how to get to the root of it.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I actually specialize in the belief system, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. So what you're talking about, I love and passionate about, and I get. So it's so important. Going on to that, how do you work? Do you work with the inner child? What does it look like?
So the work has been based on imagotherapy from Harville Hendricks and Helena Kelly Hunt, and in imagotherapy, which is a relationship therapy, but within the relationship therapy is a core wound exercise. And I've interviewed Harville so many times, and Helen, and most recently, and I haven't even published it yet on my show, I got to finally sort of confess and say to him, by the way, because I was going toe to toe with something they were talking about communication and dialoguing and monologuing, and I said, well, here's why. And I went into core wounds, and he goes, you really get this stuff. And I said, well, yes. And I actually built an entire program, a business based on your one core wound exercise that I plucked out of 12 different exercises that they do within the first 12 weeks of imagotherapy. So anyway, I took this one exercise because I've done it myself. And I had a pattern that even my ex would say to me, that doesn't work. And without a shadow of a doubt, I'm like, absolutely. I absolutely know that it doesn't work. But for some reason, I couldn't stop doing it. Now, I bring in a lot of different frameworks and tools, and one of them is astrology. And I'm a Pisces with a lot of Sag. So the truth-seeking part of me was clear. I'm like, I get it. It doesn't work, this thing that I'm doing. But for some reason, I just couldn't stop it until I saw it on a piece of paper where it went back all the way until I was 10, like at 8. I was like, oh my God, this is how far this goes back. It instantly changed my behavior, and I stopped doing it because I had a different perspective about it and where it came from and why I was doing it. So while I have hypnosis programs and strengthening intuition course, and we do all kinds of things that help program the subconscious mind, I did that for a little while, but I've seen so many people that go to, and I love hypnotherapists. I think hypnosis is great. I've had a lot of people go to different healers, and they've done this kind of work, clearing inherited emotional trauma, but then I'd get them back in my seat and I'd hear them interpret something the same way they interpreted it 2 weeks ago. And I thought, well, we can clear the pain of the subconscious, but if you still in present day interpret this situation the same exact way, we're going to stimulate the same response. We're going to bring about the same emotional reaction because you haven't changed how you view things. Wayne Dyer has a quote. I think it's Wayne Dyer. I mean, he's since passed on, but we quote this all the time. So I hope it's him, or it's him quoting somebody else. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Right. But you have to learn something new. This is why I'm not a big fan of talk therapy, because if this is all I know, and for anyone who's not watching the video, imagine I'm holding my arms out like in a bowl, like a shoulder length apart. If this is the information I know, these are the tools, these are the frameworks, these are the belief systems, these are the points of view that I have. And this is all I know, and this is what I use to interpret everything in my life. Unless I learn something new, I'm not going to interpret anything differently. I can talk about it, but it's going to stay the same because I have no new information from which to make a different opinion about what just happened or why it happened. So to me, it's this evolution of, if I understand a different point of view, if I understand the different components, and I use a ton of them that help make sense of things for people. I had a client, he wasn't a day trader, but he was in the financing world a couple of years ago, and he was an ex-addict, and he was going through a divorce, and he had this pain and anger about his dad, and that his dad, in his mind, his dad didn't love him. And so he had just started my program. And in all of my group programs, we do something called Marco Polo, which is an app where you video chat. And it's kind of like having your therapist or coach on speed dial. So you can, at any time, if you're triggered or in the moment, you get to ask for help. And not that I'm going to be always right there in the same time zone being able to help you, But within a couple of hours, somebody will be able to help address and use the tools with you on your situation. So he had just come back from a therapy session. He was still going to his therapist and said, "Oh, I just worked out on the anger piece about my dad." And I was like, "Hold on, what?" And so he told me what his interpretation was. And then I used some of the tools and frameworks, and I went back to him with a new version. And in that moment, he went, "Oh my God, I now feel love. I don't." And for the rest of the entire time together, which was months, he's like, "Is this how easy it can be?" We didn't erase what happened, but we changed his point of view and his interpretation. So rather than looking back at his life and saying my father didn't love me, he now could look back with a genuine, heartfelt love in his heart and tears in his eyes and go, "Oh my God, my dad did love me." So while you can't change history, you sure can change the interpretation of it and therefore your response to it and the hold that it has on you.
Yeah, and that's powerful.
Well, this reminds me a little bit. I did a seminar at the Landmark, and I'm sure like it got a little cultish at the end there. But in the beginning, like the first part of it was really helpful, and it helped you to reframe your childhood memories in a way where you stop blaming people, but more. There was a very powerful exercise that they did when it was a room, probably I would say maybe 200 people, 150 people. It was in New York, and they said, well, those whose parents were in their early 20s when they had you, please get up, please stand up. And those people stood up, and everyone looked at them, and they said, well, these are the people you blame. Look at these people, and they're so young. We're blaming these young people for not knowing how to parent us. And in that moment, everything I held against, or like the pain, I looked at them and I thought, oh my God, they're babies. They're babies still learning. And that particular exercise helped me to reframe the resentment I felt to understanding and love, and saying, gosh, they didn't. I mean, oh my God, I didn't know what I was doing at that age. They're like in their 20s, like early 20s. What did they know about parenting? So I totally understand sort of parts of it. And then you had to work with it, and we had to reenact. But as traders, sometimes in the moment, it's really, really, really hard to have a retrospective point of view, because you're so local that you can't get any more global than in that moment, because you're in that fight or flight state. Is there something one can do to kind of snap out of it? Even, I'm not saying solve the issue, but I'm saying momentarily take yourself out of that to maybe be able to have some sort of a reasonable point of view as to what's going on, that like the market's not trying to kill you. It's just a bunch of stuff moving on a screen. Are there any tools that you can offer that one can do in that moment to sort of snap out of that mode, that tunnel vision?
Yes, but I couldn't tell you for that something that would go across the board for everyone, because depending on why you get there. So again, going back to the core wounds, if your wound is abandoned and somehow this represents abandoned, it's going to be a different tool than if yours is devalued or if yours is ignored. So you can find them, but you have to understand your inner workings, because the one tool is not going to mean anything for everybody, right? I mean, you could, because when you're in fight or flight, it means you're out of alignment. So that's the first thing. So and again, some of this works back to, well, why do I get there? What is it that I interpret about the situation that I make it mean about myself that I react in this way? And again, for each of you and anyone listening, it's going to be a little bit different. So, I mean, there are things like a state change. So a pattern interrupt. So let's just talk about a concept, and then people can choose whatever works for them. So pattern interruption means I have some momentum going, I have a belief going, I have energy going. And if I interrupt the pattern, then I have a chance at creating a new neural pathway of how to respond differently. So in that moment, with the idea of sort of adrenaline rushing, I might tell somebody, and again, this isn't going to fix, because I don't know what the wound is and I don't know why they're reacting the way they are. When you figure that out, I've created something called a core wound map. Once you figure that out, you'll have answers for everything. But until you figure that out, I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that it sticks for you guys. But I'm going to say pattern interrupt. It could be simple as, if someone's high energy, it could be that they do some box breathing in that moment. If someone is low energy, it could be that they do some jumping jacks in that moment. It's something to change. It could be that you do Ho'oponopono, which is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Even if you just focus on one phrase, or even if you focus on the phrase of, whatever it is that you believe. So it could be that if you believe that everything kind of happens for a reason, and if you're connected to this as a purpose of what you're doing in life it's your purpose. It's like there's something about this that you're the reason why you're doing this, then it's about going deeper than what's happening in this red hot moment. So how do I get you out of fight and flight into a deeper state, whether it be breathing, saying the Ho'oponopono prayer, jumping up and down, tapping on yourself, knocking on your head, doing some tapping on different parts of your body, on your heart, on your head, and repeating a mantra that might mean I release control. I just did a live event and had everybody sing a song called I Release Control. And it's very short, but like I release control, because you don't have, you have in that moment a decision to make, but you have no control over what has just happened, and you have no control over what's going to happen. The only thing you have control over is the decision you're making in that moment about what happened and what you want to have happen. So it needs to be personalized to make it the most effective. But if you just understand pattern interruption, that could be a really powerful thing.
Thank you for sharing. What role do emotions play in our ability to create our life?
Everything. Because everything you do is because you want to feel something. You either want to feel safety, you want to feel ease, you want to feel freedom, you want to feel connected, you want to feel love, you want to feel appreciation. Every single choice you make is about how you want to feel. So to me, the emotions are the number one most important thing in the world, because you can be the richest person in the world, and if you're miserable, your money ain't gonna make you any happier. You can be the poorest in the world. It doesn't mean you're sad. You could have connection and love and just enough to get by, and you're perfectly happy. So one doesn't equate to the other, but emotions at the end of the day are the reason why we choose anything.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because the reason I ask is because, going on to traders again, I get so many traders contacting me personally because I'm a trading psychologist, and they ask me the question, how can I turn myself into a robot? How can I suppress emotions? And I'm like, you absolutely not. We can't suppress emotions, and it's important to feel those. They can be they are our strengths, aren't they, Faina?
Yeah. Well, for trade, see, here's the thing, like you can have a plan and you can say, I know that this pattern does not work, speaking trading wise, and I have this strategy, and I'm never, ever doing this again, because I know that this will cause me pain. And then you get in front of the chart and then things start moving. And then everything you just said, sometimes you observe yourself continue on. It's like your body moves out of your control and starts doing the same thing you just said you weren't going to do. And this is why they want to be robots. They want to be sort of be able to have a plan, execute a plan, but there's so many different triggers, and there's so many conversations that you have with yourself as a trader, as it's happening, because you're making decisions, your money is on the line. This is the most counterintuitive things that we do, because you're actually putting yourself in a line of danger, as opposed to, as humans, we want to be risk averse and we want to run away from danger, but you are like throwing yourself there. And so very frequently we absolutely lose control, even though you know what to do. It's just that brain takes over, and that's it. The monkey brain takes over, and there's nothing you can do. So in the moment, is there a dialogue one can have with oneself in preparation for the trading day, whether it be affirmations, whether it be to sort of get into a state where a little more balance, and you have a better chance at not what we call tilting, where you completely lose sight of what's happening, and you can't stop. You literally watch yourself from above doing these crazy things. Is there a dialogue or something one can do in preparation for a work day?
Well, I would go back to Ho'oponopono and maybe the I Surrender song, which I can give you guys a link for, because there is a bit of intuition that happens in this game, right? So it's not all just I'm in my conscious 12%. This is the knowledge that I've had brain. I think that people who are super successful do one of two things. One, you're connecting higher. You're connecting higher because you're trusting your gut, you're trusting your intuition, because that's all sometimes that you have when things are moving so quickly. But at the same time, just like any high-powered athlete, you can't operate at that speed all the time. You have to rest and recuperate. You have to build stronger. So you have to train to be able to do that in a way that doesn't wreck you. Otherwise, it continue over time, you get worse at it because you get sloppy, because you no longer have the hormones because you're not balanced, you're not rested, you're not in a training, you're not in a fighting state, so to speak. All super athletes rest. They also train in different ways in order to be, when they're on and the game is on, everything is firing, but they train that way so that they know what they're prepared for. So I would say if you're not training properly, meaning creating new neural pathways, looking at different states of being, you're not just operating in that high state of fight or flight all the time, because that will wear you out. That will burn you out. It's too much cortisol. We have to be able to come down and replenish. And you can't if we live like that all the time. So whether it be meditation, whether it be tapping, whether it be singing the surrender song, whether it be doing the Ho'oponopono prayer, whether it be grounding, going outside and putting your feet in the dirt for 20 minutes and just sitting there and being able to get back into alignment, because when you're in alignment, you can make clear decisions. When you second guess yourself, when you're out of alignment, when you're filled with fear, you're not going to make good decisions. Because you can't, because we have to look at bigger picture, not just in the moment. They have to both exist at the same time, because bigger picture has to be that this all has a wave. You know, I mean, anyone in the finance world knows that things go up and things go down. That's what happens. But if all of your energy is focused on this red hot moment and you're going to crash afterwards without a little bit more of a bigger picture, then again, you're going to burn out really quickly. And what happens with suppressed emotions, which I'm sure you guys have talked about at some point in time, is you'll get sick. Whether you get cancer, whether you lose your voice, whether you have headaches constantly, you have depression. Repressed emotion causes depression, causes anxiety. So, and that does not help you be the best performance when you're doing what you need to do.
Yeah, because that's why I call it disease. It's dis-ease, right? And so this is, and I found, like, I started playing pickleball. So before I go to the charts, I go to the courts and I play and I get all that. I sweat so much. I come back and I'm so zen because I'm partially very tired. But I think it's individual. Like, for example, I tried to meditate. It didn't quite work for me because I have ADHD. And so on top of it, I was still very, very anxious. So the only way, they say know thyself, the only way is for me to go and leave it on the court. Because when I come to the computer now, I am zen. I have very little, I'm focused, but my anxiety is at bay. Do you recommend any, for example, I really like valerian root because I feel like it calms my system. So a tea with valerian root sometimes when I'm in an anxious state can help. Do you recommend herbs or any type of supplements to your clients to help their body sort of come together, for them in the system and decision?
Well, again, it's the whole package. It's the mind, body, soul. So we have to look at, like, if your diet's crappy, you drink too much caffeine, you eat too much sugar, you have inflammation in your body, like those aren't going to be good either. So depending on, might be vitamin D deficient, you might be vitamin C deficient. So it's like reducing the inflammatory foods and keeping, not necessarily, you're not going to be in an alkaline state all the time because that's not possible. Because our body has its own changes that create acidity, but, not being super acidic, not being super inflamed, not running on sugar and crappy carbohydrates that fuel your body and then you crash. Because again, mental clarity is very important. So if you eat too much gluten, you eat too much dairy, you eat too much corn, you eat too much sugar, you are not going to be focused because you're going to have brain fog. So of course we have to clean up the diet, and that's going to be, again, individually. I actually also work with other plant medicines also with people, whether it be for microdosing, for, and anyone can find that in different places, but to help create new neural pathways, because it's been proven to reduce anxiety and depression and addiction and PTSD. So I think that, herbs, some people find CBD to be really calming and some people, they don't feel it at all. So it just depends on, you have to try again what kind of works for you, but cleaning up your diet for sure and having sort of the best possible nutrition and physical body will help your energetic system and your brain function properly. I would say probiotics. Here, I'll tell you one thing, probiotics. Clean up your gut, because your gut makes the substrates for your brain chemistry. So if your gut's off, you're not getting all of the substrates you need from norepinephrine and serotonin and dopamine and melatonin. So don't go supplementing something until you clean up your gut first and see if your brain works better.
That was my next question, was about gut health, because I work with a natural doctor and I did like a 6-week gut cleanse and completely stripped back my diet and so forth. So it made a huge, huge difference. Like, it was almost like I had a different pair of glasses on. My brain was clear. There were so many benefits. It was tough, I'm not going to lie, but it was life-changing. So that was my question, is how important do you feel gut health is? Because I think it's day and night.
Oh,
really.
absolutely. Brain fog is one of, and you can start by doing an elimination diet. Add a probiotic, first of all, a spore-based probiotic, everybody. And you'll know gas and bloating and diarrhea and constipation, these are not normal. These are indications that there's something going on with your gut. So if you have any of those and people think, oh, that's normal. Yeah, it's normal because we all have dysbiosis. So fix it. So, go on a cleanse, work with somebody, definitely start taking a probiotic and start a food elimination diet for 2 to 4 weeks. Take things out that you crave. Dairy, gluten, sugar, reduce your caffeine. If you can go grain free, even better. Do it for 2 to 4 weeks and see how much better that you feel and how much clearer you are in your head, because those things will contribute to how you focus.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
absolutely.
just gonna add, is there a probiotic that you can recommend that there's so many probiotics out there, and I guess people go to the pharmacy and they're lost. There are so many different, options to pick from. Is there any particular one that you recommend that you trust?
Yeah, I like Just Thrive. And I think if you use the code JJ, it gets you like 10 or 15% off. But it's a
Thrive,
spore base, Just Thrive. And
just thrive.
yeah,
I'm
some
writing it
stores
down.
will have it, but mostly ordered online. I mean, I have a local store here where I am that carries it, but I don't know that it is in most retail stores because it's a spore-based probiotic. So why that spore base is important is because it doesn't break down. A lot of the probiotics they're susceptible to heat and then digestion. So you start to break, by the time they get to the gut, there's not that much there. So a spore-based probiotic doesn't have those issues. You can make it all the way down to the gut before everything is released, and then it can do its job. So I have an episode about it. If you just type in Just Thrive and Fit to Love or something, or anyone's interested, I'm happy to send you the episode. Just reach out to me. I don't know it off the top of my head. It's been a couple of years, but I do really enjoy their products.
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
that's
Thank you.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
thank you for
you touched on microdosing and psilocybin, and I went through 2 cycles of actually microdosing and psilocybin, and I can honestly say I couldn't say enough about it. I was trying to get out of the that fight or flight kind of response that my brain immediately went into and try to create new neural pathways, and psilocybin was absolutely pivotal in my much calmer, much more. I've become people mistaken for being high, and I was not high. I was performing. I was trading. I did not, my walls did not melt. None of that occurred, because it was for a different purpose. But I remember when I took it, I think the first time or the second time, and I became an observer to myself, and I was like, oh my goodness, like certain things that used to get me going, and I was like, I am not even upset about that. That is so weird. And that day, I think it was the first day I took it, or the second day, I don't know what I did that day. Not because I was lost, but because I was so peaceful, and that was very unusual for me to be peaceful. And I'm like, what is this weird state? And then I said, oh my goodness, that's how you're supposed to feel, because your brain doesn't know. My brain does not remember that particular state. And what was so like groundbreaking to me was called peace, and that was so weird. And I kept saying, people said, what did you feel? I said, peace. Oh, were
yeah.
you zoned out? I'm like, no, I just did not worry about it. I didn't have 1,000 thoughts at the same time. And so that was really, really super helpful. And I guess for those who are interested, I'm sure there are ways to get, to learn more about it. And I don't promote drug
Definitely.
use.
Mhm.
You gotta do disclaimers. But then, so my other question is, um, when you have, as traders, there's a lot of opinions, and they're coming from everywhere, and you just become so inundated with suggestion. And if you go to try every suggestion, you just make suggestion soup, and you get really frustrated, and you end up doing none of it. So if someone were to make, let's say, 2 big changes to start with, right? You gotta do small steps and measure them, and then feel accomplished and move on. What would you say are the 2 biggest, or like the 2 steps that one can make towards the path of like a different type of life where anything is possible? I see it says anything possible in the back. So what are the 2 steps that could start the process?
Well, it isn't a quick fix, but I'm a big fan of understanding your core wounds because it'll just answer all the things. Um, and then I think what we talked about with diet and is also super important because these physical aspects are what create the environment that your body's in and that your brain is in. And so your ability to recover, your ability to focus, your ability to think quick on your feet, your ability to connect and to be in alignment and to get downloads and to have your intuition be strengthened are going to be a combination of understanding what drives you. What are the wounds that are driving your life? Why is it that you keep self-sabotaging? I'll give you a book recommendation also. And then, of course, the physical part. So there's a book written by Gay Hendricks. He's written a bunch of books, but my favorite is called The Big Leap. And I work with this in my program. It comes after the core wounds because I think that it needs to. But The Big Leap is basically explains that we all have a temperature gauge of how much love, success, joy, and abundance we allow in. And it's based on your core wounds and deservability for sure. It's also based on the modeling of your parents or anybody around you or your environment. And that's one of the reasons why we self-sabotage is because when we want more than we have, but we haven't built ourselves more into more, we haven't grown ourselves into more to receive the thing that we want that's different that we've never had, then you self-sabotage because you can't receive it. Because you're in this bubble saying, here's what I think I deserve. Here's what I want. But I won't let it in because I don't know how to, because it's new. So there is a bit of growing yourself it's why most people I shouldn't say most, I don't know that. That's why a lot of people I hear who have won the lottery end up going broke within a few years because they didn't, in their minds, earn it, and they did not prepare themselves to receive it. So what happens is a lot of guilt and shame and things come up and stress and fear because they did not build themselves into a place. I mean, they had to vibrationally to enable for them to manifest it, but then they didn't believe it. So then they knee jerk and then they get rid of it because they have guilt about it. And that's a clear example of when you want something that it's new to you, you have to grow into the person who can receive it and keep it. And that's personal work. That's not some kind of just go, do one thing or another thing or say a mantra. Like you have to grow yourself. But if you don't understand how to grow yourself, you got to start somewhere. So The Big Leap is a great book to start that process. At least it goes through the top 4 beliefs of why we upper limit and then how you upper limit. But I like to combine it with wounds. That way, again, we get more clear. And it's just real simple to identify and then to know what to do about it.
Yeah.
They say that like if you have to be a vibrational match to whatever you want, because you can want all you want, and you can have all these big goals, but if who you are being, and it's not what we want that we attract, it's who we're being, we attract to like. And so you could be you might want to do some great things, but if you're vibrationally are not a match to that particular thing, then that's, in my opinion, where you start, because you can't get to, or even if you get there, you probably, like the lottery, you're not going to be able to handle it because you just were not ready. And so we always love good books, and Louise and I exchange books all the time.
Yes.
How does one find you, and what is the process to work with you? What does it look like?
Well, it would be an application to one of the programs to see where you fit and what you want. I mean, go to jjflizanes.com. Everything is there, I think. I have a podcast, I have a bunch of podcasts. I do have, and I'm not sure when this is going to air, but it does matter. I run a 14-day manifestation challenge. The next one's free. It's 2 weeks. The first one is the last one of this year, the newest one is going to be November 1st, but there'll be another one next year. It might be January or February. So if you're getting this later, just go to jjflizanes.com/14-day. That's 14DAY. And to see when the next 14-day manifestation challenge is. Again, that is free. And that will at least start to give you, I have tons of tools in there that you get for free to use during the 2 weeks, from meditations and visualizations to education about different things that you can be doing as tools to increase your frequency every day.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to join your 14-day meditation challenge.
Yeah. We'll share the link as well.
As soon as we're done. Yeah, we'll share the link to it. And so, because a lot of people, it's funny how people don't want to start at like 1st of January. And I suggest you start a little bit before the 1st of January and then like leap into the new year, because if you get your gears going on the 1st of January, it's going to take you 2 to 3 months to get into gear. And now you're 6 months in, and now you're back to 2026. And so I like to do all my prep work before the new year, new me starts like in November or something.
Mine starts.
So we definitely
now.
love to share that. Starts now?
Yeah, around now. I like to do it like the last quarter of the year. Really just kind of get yourself my mind in a different place, or, it's It's a good way, 3 months. So JJ, we've come to the end of the show now. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've really inspired us. Well, you've certainly inspired me, and I'm sure you've inspired the listeners. I can see Faina's inspired as well. Thank you so much for your knowledge. I think we could have really talked for hours, to be honest, about so many different things. So thank you very much for sharing that. And we are absolutely going to share all of your links in the descriptions when we go live. But thank you very much. So is there any kind of words of wisdom that you would like to end the show with?
Anything is possible. So if you want something you don't have, I would say know that there's a way to get it. You just have to do a little bit of work to get it. So I appreciate the opportunity. I hope something has landed for somebody. I hope that you feel inspired to know that you have the power to change your life and your trajectory, no matter where you are, because there's just tools. You just have to learn something new. And it might be a little bit of work, and it should stretch you out of your comfort zone. But that's how the work gets done. But your life is changeable, I promise.
Oh, thank you so much. Well,
I wanted to say to our listeners, join us on the 14 days of manifestation with JJ.
Yes.
And maybe we can all, exchange of how that went, and maybe see each other in the new year again, JJ, and talk about, I'm very interested in everything that you have. And maybe we can chit chat about the 14 days that I've spent with your manifestation challenge and the changes that we've seen, and hopefully our listeners and viewers can join us. But that is it for now, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.